Hey, what's up, guys? This is your boy Sean Thomas with the Ocala Arts and Entertainment Podcast you are checking out. And today with me is a gentleman who is none like the other. He is special. And I'm really happy to sit next to him to, hear his story about what he does in the community. We are blessed to have this wonderful space where his work is displayed. And this is the City of Ocala Recreational Administrative Building. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
I got it right?
Yes, sir.
Good. And of course, you're going to see a beautiful lady coming in at some point, but you have to stay tuned. All right? You have to stay tuned to the Ocala Arts and Entertainment Podcast, because this beautiful lady is responsible for the display in this lovely room of his work. And her name is Emily Parkman. So stay tuned, all right? Now, of course, sitting next to me is, so this is the interesting part. Now, I can't just say one name, because this guy he wears two hats. So, but I learned it's the correct name, Albert Anthony Bevilacqua. Now, that last name is also a nice name. I'm into rhythm, so when I hear people and their names, I always connect with that rhythm in their name. So, Bevilacqua. However, half and half on the planet Earth so far. This guy is known to a lot of people by the name Tony, but Albert is like the official
name. Albert Anthony Bevilacqua III. Don't get any more official.
So you said the third. So we have a second and the first. And
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what is interesting, what I would like to start with, Albert, Tony, is you have an interesting story, because here it is, you are contributing to the environment. The work you do, it has to do with items that folks decided was not of any use, and you stepped in to say, oh, I have an idea for that. And that is not normal. That's a gift and a talent that I'm happy to share on the Ocala Arts and Entertainment Podcast. What I also find interesting is how you would visit the beach area, the parks and what have you, to find these discarded items. And another interesting side of what you do is showing up to these hardwares or what have you to try and buy discarded paint.
Yes, sir.
So we need to explore this. So I'm so happy that you are coming on to the Ocala Arts and Entertainment Podcast to share how did you get to that point. But so we want to find out, okay, before you stepped into doing art, what was happening before that? And firstly, where are you coming out from in terms of your neck of the woods, country-wise?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but first, I want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. It's great, and I appreciate it.
Quite welcome.
And you are correct. I am not normal. My wife can attest to that. And so basically, I like to bring awareness to environmental issues. Not littering, plastics in the environment, cleaning up beaches and parks. Florida is known for its many beautiful places, which I'm a big outdoors person.
Yes.
My getaway, I tell everybody, I'm kind of still like that little kid, Saturday morning I get up early, I just want to go out and play.
Yes.
My playground is I love going to a lot of the wildlife conservation areas and parks and beaches, paddleboarding, canoeing. I just love being out in these areas. From Loxahatchee, Big Cypress Bend, there's so many of these parks in Florida, and they really are a treasure to our state. The sad part is a lot of pollution, a lot of litter, You know, you go to these parks and beaches and people discard soda cans, water bottles, spoons, knives. So my wife and I, we got involved in a lot of community projects, and what we were doing is sponsoring beach and park cleanups, where we would get a group of people together, pass out garbage bags. We would go around and we would clean up a park or we would clean up a beach. And then it came to me one day when we were gathering a lot of this material, is like, wow, you know what? I could probably make something out of it, you know? And now, a true story, we did the first beach cleanup, and I had this big tarp out, and everybody was bringing all this stuff. You know, they were pulling out of the intercoastal and the beach, and I mean, it was really horrific stuff. So my wife is standing next to me. She's like, wow, they really picked up a lot of stuff. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I got to try to get this in the car because I'm taking it home. And my wife looked at me and goes, what do you mean you're taking this home? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make some art out of it.
Oh.
And my wife was looking at me again like, you know, I've been standing too close to the garbage or something. You know? So I tried to convince her. She's a good sport about a lot of this stuff. So we did. I took a lot of the stuff home, cleaned it up, and I just started making things out of it. You know, I was just playing around, you know, with like water bottles, and some of the artwork, as you can see in the building, where it was made out of the water bottles. And there was a lot of experimenting going on because, you know, if you hit a water bottle with too much heat, it will literally shrivel up and disappear. Working with styrofoams, and as you mentioned, the discarded paints came about because I am on a very tight budget. My wife gives me a spending allowance, which, and if you do go to an art store, I mean, Lord have mercy, paints and brushes.
Forget about it.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how artists make it. I mean, it's a lot of cash you got to dole out, you know? So one day I was at one of the home improvement stores, and I was going around the corner, and they had this rack there, and there was like these spray paints and these little jars of tester paints and even caulking and everything on the rack was for 50 cents.
Oh.
And I was like,
that sounds like me.
That sounds like me. So budget accomplished. So I scooped it all into the cart and I took it home, and I just started playing around. And, you know, I would even go by, there would be places that they would be doing construction work and they would be throwing away a lot of the stuff that they were discarding, boxes, paints, materials, and I would pick it up and use that either as canvas, you know, something to work on or actually paint on. Like one of the sculptures I showed you was entirely made from styrofoam. I glued a bunch of styrofoam together, carved it out, and then applied all of these corporate logos to it, which is entitled Brand Man. And then the other one, which I showed you, which was Look, that was entirely made from stuff found at a park, Gumbo Limbo in Boca Raton. And that was neat. So that's, to me, it was a couple of things. It was the challenge of just taking stuff and making stuff out of it. And that was a challenge in itself. And doing something that people could recognize and see and say, wow, he made that out of bottles, or wow, he painted that using a bunch of discarded paints and materials just found. I mean, I just thought that was, you know, I never really considered myself a, you know, artist. I didn't have the background or education or any of that. It was just something it totally came by accident. I was playing around in the garage with a bunch of, again, materials that otherwise I was about to throw out. I started throwing some paint on a board and some other, I'm just going to sound really corny, my wife had a box of these old shower curtain rings. And I cut them up and I made a flower out of it and I glued it to this board. And a friend was coming by and she saw this and, you know, went nuts over it and thought it was like really amazing. I'm like, wow, you know. And so I started questioning myself at that point. And so it was just really neat. That's how it kind of started. So it evolved, and then each project became more of a challenge. Whether I found a piece of styrofoam, whether I came across a case of caulking and spray paint and another bunch of discarded material, what can you possibly make?
Right.
Even, you know, these two pieces behind these were two box boards that were found. And
This one?
yep, both of these. And I just used, these are all discarded paints, and that was it. I just went to town, and and a lot of artists can attest to this. When you go into your studio or your workshop or your garage, you're either going to make something really beautiful or
Yes.
you're going to make a big mess. And in my case, most of the time it's a mess, but sometimes it's really beautiful. You never know.
What I would like the viewers to tap into is, you mentioned that you and your wife had a discussion about going to start this, cleanup campaign.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it? I mean, how did that come about? Is it, because you've been going to the beaches, you've been...
Yes,
and you would
I
see-
frequent the beaches. Like I said, I go to these places a lot. And my wife is also my business partner. We run a business and we work together. And, so we love doing... My wife and I worked very hard to build a business.
Right.
And
What's the name of the business?
well, we're in the financial services industry.
Okay.
And, so we built a business and we both run our business together. And we've been very fortunate through the years. We love giving back. We love doing things that truly impact the community. We wanted to do things that really have an impact.
Right.
And we love interacting with people and the kids. And we get a real big kick out of doing these programs, whether it's for Autism Speaks, Humane Society, St. Jude's, Feeding America.
Right.
We'll see something maybe in the news or something that will prompt us to do something, but we just generally like doing something that's hands-on.
Right.
That's just the way we are.
Right.
And we thought, what better way, going to a beach or going to a park, getting a bunch of people together, and spending a day at the park or the beach is not a bad thing.
Of course.
And doing something good
Yeah.
as well as cleaning it up and making the place beautiful again. Using the artwork to remind people that you need to protect the environment, not litter. And
So when did you start doing that?
we started doing this, I'm going to say, I think it all started back in like maybe 2018, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah, 2000, I would say, yeah, about that time frame.
And is it something you do like every month, or is it every two? How often do you gather?
It just depends what's going on. Obviously with COVID, everything, we were doing it once a year.
Right.
And then,
okay.
then when COVID came along, it made, obviously there was a 3-year period where nothing was really happening.
Yeah.
We also moved up to this area as well. I actually go back and forth between South Florida and Northern Florida. My business is in South Florida, and I have a residence in Northern Florida, so we go back and forth. So, we try to do what we can with the time that we have,
So you guys are collecting all this stuff, and you are seeing all of this discarded material, and you say to your wife, you know what, I want to take this home. I mean, is it that you are connected to art by a family member or someone in the family that already is doing art? Your parents been involved in music? How, I'm trying to get a sense.
The art thing, I think, comes, my father's side of the family were all into culinary arts. My father was a chef, his father was a chef. They used to do sculptures and ice sculptures and stuff. So growing up as a kid, watching my father, do an ice sculpture, I'll never forget it. My grandfather and my father once made a replica of the Liberty, oh my God, lost for words now, New York
Statue of
Liberty.
Okay.
All out of margarine or butter.
Oh,
and as a kid, I was like blown away. Thought it was cool.
So would you say that can be like the starting point of your creative art?
Twofold. It was watching my father and my grandfather do this wonderful stuff in the culinary world. I had a really, really great mom who was just really great with projects. My mom was Boy Scout, Girl Scout, and my mom was terrific at taking a Clorox bottle and making it into a helicopter. We did this one time as a project as a kid. So doing these little projects with my mother and seeing my father do some of the work that they did was definitely, one of the big part of my life that was always inspirational. As a kid, I used to draw and cartoons and make little things like that. And,
were you good at it, the drawing?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I did a lot of drawings, and that was really neat. I think I love color. And as you can see, the artwork, I like color and I like experimenting with different types of materials. So that's where it took. And I literally see things like when the sculpture look that I shared with you that was made out of the oil jug, like when the couple came across the beach and they were holding that jug, I know it sounds kind of corny, but I saw the face in the jug, as they were handing it to me. So I instantly knew that was going to be the centerpiece of my next project, you know. And so like I'll pick some, like at one time I did for Gumbo Limbo in Boca Raton. Luna is their mascot, which is a sea turtle. They do a lot in the area of sea turtle conservation and protection. And so we found a couple of discarded hard hats. And the first thing I thought of when I saw the hard hat was a turtle shell. So I made 2 small turtles using the hard hats. I cut them a certain way and I airbrushed them and everything, and they came out and they looked like sea turtles.
Yes.
And I know it sounds kind of corny, so I could see certain objects, like I know I showed you the look one with the bag of coat hangers, you know, that was someone threw out at the park, and I instantly thought of, what I can make and how I can take those coat hangers and twist it up and make something different out of it. So, or the water bottles. The water bottles was like endless. It was like giving somebody, a Lego set. It was like, because they're so uniform, right? And the dimensions and everything. So I was like, wow, this could have so many different things to it. So when I started cutting up the water bottles and I made a sculpture out of 480 water bottles, which is a flamingo, actually a 6-foot flamingo feeding her baby. And it's entirely made from 480 water bottles. And I just saw this in my head. And I just slowly just started using the bottles and making them work to make the sculpture. And I gotta tell you, half the time I surprised myself because I didn't think I was gonna pull that off, to be honest with you. So,
what I find interesting is, okay, so when you started the cleanup campaign thing, of course, by that time you're not seeing objects and you're not seeing anything to say, well, I can maybe do something. You're just focusing on doing good stuff for the community and you're collecting all this stuff. So at some point you went into your garage or what have you, and you saw all of this stuff, and I guess it triggered that you could you tell us, like, did you do what was the first piece of art you kind of put your hand on and you could say, maybe I could try this with this? And
it's
all the one with the shower curtain, is that one?
Yeah, so with the shower curtains, rings, I mean, it was just, honestly, just, I would find, like I said, just holding an object, playing with it, looking at it, and saying, I'm going to make a flower out of this, you know? And that, there lies the challenge. And then I just sit there and play with the object until I could figure out how to make a flower out of it, so most of the times I don't really go into it with a set agenda. I just literally see the object in my hand, and then I start, like one of the beach cleanups, they pulled out a bunch of like lawn chairs, aluminum lawn chairs and stuff. So I cut up the aluminum lawn chairs and I made them look like coral reef, like an underground coral reef. And, I know most people don't look at a bunch of aluminum pipes and see coral reef, but that's what went through my head. So as I was cutting up the pipes and I was laying them out on, the material to create this 3D artwork, it just comes together. And that's the cool thing too, because people can then see the vision, like in the paintings that are here, like with the flowers or, with the flamingo and the other pieces of art that I showed you. It just comes together. I don't know how to explain it. I just go in there and, like I said, I'll go in there and
start playing. So basically, the discarded objects that you started collecting became your toys.
Yes, I just played with them to figure out what I can make. I never approached it was like. There's been some pieces that I had an inspiration for. So the flamingo, a friend of mine who's a photographer sent me a picture. He actually took a picture of a flamingo feeding her baby and sent it to me. And I saw that flamingo picture, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a sculpture out of that. Right. And then when I saw the water bottles, I'm like, that's gonna be the medium.
So the sculpture side of it. Did that come after you being able to do stuff on the canvas, like the art stuff, or both sculpture and art?
I just jump back and forth. I mean, if you see my artwork, it's very different. My wife jokes and says I have art ADD because there's so many different styles, and again, it's just whatever is going through my head at the time and whatever I'm doing. I don't want to be pigeonholed just to making a certain type of art or a certain type of style. I love the freedom to do whatever I feel like doing. If I want to make something out of styrofoam or hard hats or water bottles or spoons, whatever it may be, I just love the fact that I can try and make something. And hey, it's either going to be art or it's not, and I just try. And
so do you? Because you said, well, okay, if in your brain you see a flaw, mm-hmm. and you're saying that you will try to use whatever objects you have to make this flaw, do you also see some of the discarded items and you could just imagine something from it immediately?
Yeah.
So both ways.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes so you think of an image, you make it, and then you see the image and the items already presents itself.
Yeah, like sometimes, like I said, as soon as I saw the hard hats, boom, I was like, that's going to be a sea turtle. You know what I mean? And
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll see certain objects and think, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make that out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we were talking earlier, there's some things that and also some things I always wanted to do but never had the medium. And all of a sudden, by accident, you come across a medium that would be perfect for that project. And I'm always experimenting. I'm always learning. And so, that's to me why I love it. Again, I like doing the artwork. It takes me away from my career. It's a chance for me to take a mental breather from work and all the stuff. We all have baggage and stuff that we have to deal with in our day-to-day lives, and for me that is my escape, is just to go in the garage and play with discarded materials and paints and this type of stuff, or as my wife liked to say, make a giant mess. And that's my Zen time. Everyone has their own. Some people play golf, some people climb a mountain,
go to the movies,
read books, hey.
Yeah.
And everyone should have something that they love to enjoy and pursue the things that they like,
Yes.
I think the world would be a better place if most folks did find something that they would like to do.